Are you going to let me know when it's okay to start, Mr. Per? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's so good to see everyone. Tonight, we've got two meetings to accomplish. We have the regular meeting of the City Council, and then we have a closed session. It is 6:01, and I'd like to call the council closed session to order. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N2820 and the orders of the Ventura County Public Health Officer issued March 20th, 2020, stay well at home order. We'll go ahead and convene the closed session meeting at this time. And can we do a roll call? Do we do a roll call before we go into closed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep. Councilmember Berg.
Here.
Councilmember Gama.
Here.
Councilmember Rollins.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Here.
And Mayor Hernandez.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And do we have any general public comments for items not on the agenda that have been received by our city clerk?
And not for closed session.
Okay, very good. Mr. City Attorney, would you like to read the closed session items, please?
Thank you, Mayor Hernandez. We have one item for closed session, and that is a conference with legal counsel for existing litigation. This is authorized pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. The title of the action is City of Port Hueneme versus Dario Pini et al. And the case number is 56-2019-0053286-CU-PT-VTA.
We'll go ahead and recess to closed session. The time is 6:03. to order. It is 6:30 p.m. and let's begin with a flag salute, please. Hand to heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're done.
Thank you. Okay. We are conducting this meeting as pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N29-20 and the orders of the Ventura County Public Health Officers Stay Well at Home Order of March 20th, 2020. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yeah. Councilmember Burke,
Here.
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes. Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapps,
Here.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Here.
All present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have the pleasure of doing the inspiration for today's meeting. And to be honest with you, I didn't come prepared, but something struck me that I found inspirational today that I would like to share with you. And it actually happened while I was coming home from shopping, and I noticed that we had some public works personnel working in my neighborhood, and I always like to slow down and wave at them, and they don't know who I am, I think, for the most part, but I would like to observe them working, and I just feel so proud of them for what they do for our city and the service they provide. But what I observed was an older manager type of public works employee actually training somebody who was younger, maybe new to the city, or maybe new to this particular job. But it was just the way that they were speaking and the way he was speaking to him. And it just made me think about how we are transitioning ourselves to allow others younger than us take over and to fulfill our duties after we leave. And the transition is so important, and it's really important that we pass on our information to those who are going to be holding this gavel, in the next 20, 30 years, and people who will be cleaning our streets and doing the maintenance and making sure that we pass on all that vital information that's so important that we keep up here, or we keep in our records, that we pass that on to the next generation. So that was my inspirational moment today, and I hope you got something out of that. So let's go ahead and move on to public comment. Oh no, we need to do the City Council agenda approval. So we need a motion in a second.
Move to approve the agenda for tonight.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May we get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapps,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And we have two submittals for public comment. And I will begin with reading Mr. Tom Figgs submitted. Yes.
Mayor, Tom Figgs was in for item number 6. So just Miss Dolly Knight will be for general public comment, and then we'll hear Mr. Figgs for item number 6.
Oh, okay. And there was nothing marked on the sheet here, so I wasn't sure. Okay. Thank you. All right, so I have the pleasure of sharing the public comment for Dolly Knight tonight. It reads, "Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. While our building is closed, the Ray D. Pruder Library continues to offer walk-up holds, pickup, and we have expanded our hours for this service. We are available from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and Saturday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Not sure what to read or watch next? Call the library, check out our lists of new titles on our online catalog, or even stop by. We are displaying a selection of new fiction, nonfiction, youth, and Spanish titles in our windows. Now is a great time to try a new hobby. We are offering pickup craft kits for adults. Currently available are coloring books and embroidery kits. On our website, bencolibrary.org. We offer ebooks, virtual tutoring, live story times, and more. Our fall reading challenge is underway for kids, teens, and adults. Read books, win prizes. Finally, the library is offering wireless printing of up to 10 pages. Contact the library at 805-486-5460 for more information and instructions. We are currently working with public health on a plan for safe reopening of branches for computer use and limited browsing when the county moves into less restrictive infection tiers, and will keep council and the public informed of any changes in services. We hope to welcome patrons back into the library as soon as is safe for our staff and public. Until then, stay healthy and well. Best, Dolly Knight, MLIS Regional Librarian. Thank you, Dolly, for your comments. Okay, and we'll move now on to presentations. Our first presentation is Domestic Violence Awareness Month and Proclamation, and this is going to be presented by our Chief Andrew Salinas.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I will read the proclamation. This is a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month and some of the things, and then I'm going to follow that by sharing with everyone what we're doing here at the police department this month, along with what we're doing for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. As some of you see that I actually have a uniform with the newest patches on as well. So with that, whereas October is designated as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and whereas domestic violence is a crime which affects all races, cultures, and social demographics, whereas domestic violence has a profound impact on the family and the community, and whereas children that grow up in violent homes are believed to be abused and neglected at a higher rate than the national average, and whereas only a coordinated community effort will put a stop to this atrocious crime, and whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing domestic violence and show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, services, and assistance to victims, and whereas the Port Hueneme Police Department, City of Port Hueneme, and community-based organizations are in a position to provide education, information, and services to assist victims in believing that they have a right to feel safe and to live free from violence at home and in the workplace. And whereas we recognize the survivors and victims of abuse whose courage inspires us all, we recommit to offering a helping hand to those most in need, and we remind them that they are not alone. And whereas we must continue to stand alongside advocates, victim service providers, law enforcement, and our criminal justice system as they hold offenders accountable and provide care and support to survivors during the darkest moments of their life. And whereas the Port Hueneme Police Department and City of Port Hueneme urge all its citizens to take a stand against domestic violence by raising awareness about this issue and the resources available to victims seeking to escape abuse. And whereas the Port Hueneme Police Department will wear pink police patches as an outward expression of an inner commitment to connect with our community, to create awareness and support those experiencing any form of domestic violence. Whereas we will continue our efforts to end the violence in our homes, schools, and communities. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of Port Hueneme hereby proclaims October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and encourages all residents to participate in programs and outreach efforts aimed towards educating and supporting those who are victims of domestic violence. So with that, I did mention that we're wearing pink patches. It's pink, the patches actually represent more of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It is to, though, get that discussion going and people asking us when they recognize that our uniforms are different. So not only do we bring awareness to cancer, but we also bring awareness to Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. Along with that, some of the things that we are doing this October is you will see our police cars. We are transforming 2 of our police cars. One's going to be in pink lettering and another one is going to be in purple lettering, signifying awareness for each one of those campaigns. You'll also commonly see, and I don't think you can see it on the screen here, but I do have a purple ribbon on me that recognizes Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as well as you can see the pink patches and the actual pink chevrons that I wear on my uniform, as all officers will be wearing those patches throughout the month of October. Also, I wanted to share some statistics with everyone in regards to domestic violence. That's commonly a question here. So far in 2020, we have responded to 303 calls for service related to domestic violence. During this same time period, we had only responded, or I should say we responded to 289 during this same time period, meaning from January to the end of September. So that's an increase of 14 calls. In 2019, we responded to a total of 367 calls for service for domestic violence, which averages out to at least one domestic violence call per day that the Port Hueneme Police Department handles. And as many of you know, this is probably or arguably classified as the most dangerous call that we can respond to for many reasons. Typically because both parties have been involved in a heated argument. Sometimes some sort of substance is involved, whether it be narcotics or alcohol, as well as weapons are often commonly used during these disputes. Thus far, we have responded to, we have taken 18 felony reports, which resulted in 9 arrests. We've responded to 7 misdemeanor domestic reports, which resulted in an arrest. And we have responded thus far to 155 verbal domestic disputes, of which is an increase from last year, because all of last year we responded to 155 domestic disputes. So that's exactly the same amount that we responded all of last year, and that's where we are this year. So there have been more verbal domestic disputes this year than all of last year. To date, last year, we would have only responded to 115. Now, many of you may ask, well, why is that? Anecdotally, I can offer you this. More people at home due to COVID-19. There are more stressors in 2020 than ever before when you include money, jobs, schooling, evictions, protests. That is commonly the reason why people get involved in domestic violence incidents, and there are more people out of custody. Again, so that would lead to an increase in domestic violence. And so with that, I did mention some of the things that we are doing this month, not only our social media campaign, but our vehicles, as well as the pins and patches that we are wearing this month. So with that, if anyone has any questions.
Any questions for Chief Salinas?
I thank everyone for their support.
Thank you. Councilman Gama.
Yes, I'm wearing pink tonight for my dear cousin, Rachel Santley Smith. She passed away last week from breast cancer. And so it's out there, and it's difficult to deal with. And I also wear pink tonight for my lifelong friend's wife, Gabriella Gerbasi. She passed away of breast cancer about 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm grateful to know my sister is a 10-year survivor, and I know many, many breast cancer survivors within the community of Port Hueneme. I want to say to all of you, keep up the good attitude, keep fighting, and as a community, we're always together in our prayers. Also, I have a blue bow tie on. The gender equivalent of breast cancer is prostate cancer, and I actually have a little history with that. So I want to do a little public service announcement to all the males out there who are approaching 50. Get your PSA blood work done. And it's a very easy way to detect cancer early on. And it's good to get an early start on it. So with that, thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gama. I'm sorry for your loss. Councilman Rollins. You're on mute.
Chief Salinas, are there any kind of education programs out to the general public on recognizing domestic violence and abuse? A lot of times people kind of don't want to get involved per se, but that probably may not be the right way to deal with it. And are there any kind of education programs through Port Hueneme or through the county to educate the general public to, when they see stuff, to get out there and take a stand, or at least make the police aware?
So a couple of things as it relates to domestic violence. We actually have our own domestic violence victim advocate here in the Port Hueneme Police Department. So when anyone is involved in a domestic violence incident, we offer those services. Whenever a domestic violence report comes across her desk, she will follow up with the victim to offer them services that they can acquire free from the County of Ventura. The County of Ventura has a victim services office at the government center that can offer assistance for items such as restraining orders. Also by law, there's a law called Masry's Law, which requires that all officers that respond to a domestic violence incident are required to provide the victim with specific information which outlines all of the services available to them and their rights.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good to know. Anybody else have questions for Chief Salinas? Okay, thanks again, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to the next item. This is you again, Chief Salinas, and this will be our COVID-19 update under item 2.
Okay, I'm gonna try and share my screen here and okay, so I am providing City Council with an update on COVID-19, as I've been doing at most City Council meetings. The last update was on September 8th. I did not give one at the last council meeting, as I provided other presentations that required my attention. To date, as compared to the last council meeting, as you can see the numbers here, we have had an increase of 62 additional cases in the last 4 weeks, which has increased our total percentage in the county to 3.1%. We did have an additional death in the city of Port Hueneme, which brings our total death total to 3, and that is out of 153 deaths to date. And we currently have 31 active cases in the city of Port Hueneme. So as I mentioned, we have 31 cases, active cases. As you can see, as it compares to the last presentation I did 4 weeks ago, where we're at, we do have 10 more active cases than we did a month ago, as do a few other cities, such as the city of Oxnard. Everything's staying relatively the same. We do have fewer active cases total in the county than we did 4 weeks ago, which is great. We have looks like to be nearly 125 fewer cases than last time, which is good in terms of what tier we're in. And as you'll see in the presentation here, we're actually going to be moving down to the red tier from the current purple tier that we're in right now. So I commonly get asked about the base numbers. And so I kind of wanted to talk to everybody about how the base numbers impact our numbers. So as you heard me say, we have 31 active cases right now in the city of Port Hueneme. Of those, 7 of them are base cases. So if we take that percentage, that equates to 22.5% of our total cases come from the base. If we just use that as a sampling, let me move this around so I can see this. If we just use that as a sampling, if we subtract the 7 cases from the 31 cases we have, that means the city only has 24 cases. So if we take the total amount that we have right now, which is 401, apply the 22% sampling, that means approximately 90 cases are actually coming from the base. When we subtract the 90 cases from the 401, That leaves us with 311 cases here in the city of Port Hueneme. Right now, we account for 3.1% of all total county cases when we use the 401 number for total cases. But when we adjust the number to 311, we only account for 2.4% of total county cases, which is, again, well below our county population, which equates to about 2.8 to 2.9%. So I just wanted to show that to everyone. And again, this is just using the most recent active cases that we have, and just using that as a sampling to show how the base affects our numbers. So if we take this slide here that was taken from the County of Ventura on Friday, that's the most recent update I have, you can see by the chart here that we're definitely on the decline or decrease. It seems we have peaked throughout July and August, and now we're on a downward trend. As you see the incidence per 100,000 population, our goal was 100 or is 100, and now it's down to 85.49. As you remember in recent presentations, we were well into the hundreds prior to this. This was the September 8th presentation and the slide I showed everyone. I'm going to show you the most updated slide, which came out on Friday. One of the things that were preventing us from moving down in the tiers, the colored tiers, was the 7-day average case rate per 100,000. As you can see, our goal is 7, and it was at 7.8%. So if we move to Friday's results, you'll see that we now have reached all of the goals that are required, the metrics that are required. We have met these goals as of last Tuesday, and as a result, beginning tomorrow, if all goes well with today's numbers, which they have, we are going to be moved to the red tier, which is going to help open up our economy just a little bit more, and I'll explain how that's going to impact us. So this was the map I showed you earlier back in September, and I talked about that purple tier being the highest risk tier, and so we'll now be moving down to the red tier, which is the second highest risk tier, which has a positivity rate of 5 to 7.9%. I believe actually that number should be 7%, not 7.9%. And so we are now at a 7% positivity rate here in the County of Ventura. And if you don't see us here on the county, that's where we're at there. So we're currently purple, and tomorrow we should be moving to red. So beginning tomorrow, the state of California has announced this health equity metric. And it's not going to impact us moving from purple to red tomorrow because we already fall within this index. And this new metric called the HPI is a composite measure of socioeconomic opportunity applied to census tracts that include 25 individual indicators across economic, social, education, transportation, environmental, and neighborhood sectors, just to name a few. So in other words, the state is making sure that a county has a positivity rate throughout its county, that it's not just half the population that's not having COVID and the other half is, and where we're using an average across the board. It's making sure that every census tract is falling within the guidelines, especially those census tracts that meet this criteria as it involves their socioeconomic background or neighborhoods they live in. And so even with that new criteria, we do fall and are still able to move from purple to red. So I wanted to remind everyone that there is still plenty of testing going on throughout the county, over a dozen locations that people can go to throughout the county to test for COVID. The testing is free, and again, no appointment is needed. So I talked about moving from the purple tier to the red tier. As a result, there is no longer a time limit for facility serving meals. It was limited to 90 minutes, but effectively immediately and beginning tomorrow, essentially, the seating, this will change, and then seating must be kept to the same household, and 11 p.m. is still the closure time for all indoor businesses. Garage sales and swap meets are now allowed, and the ratio for day camps will move from, I think it was 10 to 1 and can now move from 14 to 1. Along with that, gyms can open to a 10% capacity with a 12-foot social distancing, and masks are required. Now, indoor facilities that can now open include restaurants, places of worship, movie theaters, gyms, museums, zoos, aquariums, and can open with an indoor capacity of up to 25% or 100 people. So also, what are we doing here in the city of Port Hueneme as it relates to COVID? Many of you have seen the movies in the park. We brought that for our public. Our next showing will be this Friday. Advertising for that will go out Wednesday night. The last showing was an overwhelming success and sellout. We had to turn people away. We are printing out new signs at the beach. The ones that are currently at the beach have faded. So we will be doing that. So you know, we actually print our signs in-house. So the ink that is used is not, doesn't do very well in the sun. If we had them professionally printed, each sign would cost us about $40 to $50 each. Printing them in-house only cost a couple dollars each. We talked with the County of Ventura. We plan on having the hand washing stations at the beach continue to at least the end of the year, as it assists us greatly because we close our restrooms at the beach at 10 p.m. This county is sending us a couple of electronic message boards to continue to send our COVID message. We will be deploying them out on Ventura Road and Pleasant Valley Road this week, and they've allowed us to keep them for the time being or until they need them back. So we'll now have a total of 3 message boards available to us to remind the public and give them, provide them with COVID updates, to refer them to our emergency website, and to provide them with updates. And we are in the process of getting reimbursement not only from the county, but we're also working on the reimbursement and providing the applications necessary to get reimbursement from FEMA. And Sergeant Starna, as well as our emergency preparedness officer, Scott Madelon, are working on that as well. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, the first hand I saw was Councilman Rollins. You want to go ahead, Councilman Rollins?
I had 3 quick questions. Hopefully they're quick. The active cases, how long do they stay as active, and when do people actually, short of passing away, which we don't want them to do, how long do you stay as active once you get on the active case? Do you just kind of build on each other, or do they actually go off?
We use a 14-day window.
Okay.
A 14-day cycling window. So that's how we keep track of active cases.
So at the end of 14 days, what has to happen to get off?
If you tested positive 14 days ago, tomorrow you would fall off the list.
Okay. The second question I got a little bit mixed up on the stats. At one point I saw gyms are limited to 10% occupancy, and then I saw something next to it where they're going to be open, it's going to be 25%. So maybe you can just... Sure.
So the gyms will be relegated to 10%, and some of the and the indoor restaurants are going to be relegated to 25% with a maximum of 100 people. And that includes places of worship, as well as museums and zoos and aquariums and some of those other entertainment establishments. And
so what was that? What was that 10% did you say in the beginning?
That was just for gyms.
Okay.
Gymnasiums and fitness centers.
And that's different from the 25% gymnasium?
Yes. They have been weeded out or have been given more restrictive policies in regards to attendance at their facilities. And
how will the red level affect playground use? I know we have a lot of signs up there now.
Yes, we actually, I believe we took down all the playground signs. The county recently released that we are allowed now to allow for children to use the playground equipment as well as the swings. So last week I contacted Public Works to unchain the swings at the beach, as well as take down all the signs at the local playgrounds, which included Miranda and Bubbling Springs Park.
And the fields will remain closed, though?
That is correct. The fields are closed for organized play. What we're trying to prevent is organized teams from having games and playing with each other. Conditioning and drills are allowed, just the organized games are not allowed on any of our fields.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Chief Salinas? Councilman Berg and then Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you very much. I just quickly wanted to share for the second time during this lockdown, my wife and I went and got tested. Yesterday, we went to Oxnard College. Previously, we had gone to Ventura College. There were 3 cars in the parking lot. It's very quick, very simple. You'll get right through. And we got our results today from yesterday's visit. So less than 24 hours, we got our negative results back. So I encourage everybody, get tested. The more of us that get tested, the quicker we maybe can get the lockdown lifted a little more, every bit. So every bit helps. Oxnard College was very fast with it.
Agreed, and that comes down from a 2-hour wait just over a little over a month ago. So it's very easy to go get tested right now.
Yeah, with us at 3 cars, there was no wait at all. They had 3 lines, and we just drove right through.
Great.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Chief Salinas. It's always really great that you pass along this information for us and our residents here. Tell us a little bit more about this health equity metric, because this is something new that's actually going to be applied to the entire state. And you're talking about it has to do with like census tract areas and how it's all measured. Can you give a little bit more detail about that?
Sure. So it's the state's way of making sure that the county isn't just providing services to certain sectors in their communities. But what the County of Ventura did from the get-go is it divided all of its cases by zip codes. And so that's why you get the breakdown that we do. I think it breaks it down by roughly 20 different zip codes. So early on, we were doing this whole sector thing, and we were able to quickly decipher if there's any one sector or zip code that needed more attention than others or had higher positivity rates. And so what the state is doing is making sure that the counties are paying attention to all areas and aren't in the, we'll call it in the green, simply because it's averaging out, the bad areas are averaging out with the good areas. They want to make sure that the entire county is getting the attention they need. And so they're going to these census tracts, but essentially the county has already been doing it by dividing the entire county by zip codes.
So then it sounds like, because we've been doing it, but maybe other counties haven't, is that maybe they've moved faster, down the chain because it could be an average versus looking at it from the census perspective. So I guess what I'm saying is that now it puts us all on the level playing field in terms of measurement.
Yes, it does. And so what the state found out is these neighborhoods that are very challenged by this, their positivity rate was about 40%, as where the California average was only 24%. And so they wanted to address that. And this is their way of addressing it, to make sure that counties aren't getting downgraded without this actually being looked at.
And when does this health equity metric start now?
It starts tomorrow, October 6th.
All right, thank you.
So I had a question, Chief, regarding the health metric, and how public is that information going to be after the data is collected? Will we be able to know and identify specific neighborhoods that are problematic? And
that is a good question. I don't know, because it starts tomorrow. We'll quickly get to see. But right now, since we're already using zip codes, we're able to quickly see if there's any particular areas that stand out. For instance, I commonly report to everyone that What our positivity rate is right now we're at 3.1% in our county population. In relation to that is 2.8 to 2.9%. So we're right where we're supposed to be, as where there may be other communities that aren't seeing those same levels or correlations. And so they get identified as perhaps needing more services or more awareness in those areas. So the county is doing a good job of already kind of figuring out which areas need more attention.
So if you take our city 93041, are we divided beyond that with the 4-digit codes?
No, not that I'm aware of in terms of tracking right now that in terms of me having that information. The only thing that we are coupled with is with the base, as you know. And so that would be like the equivalent of counting all the people in the county jail that have positive rates or positive tests with the city of Ventura. Just because the jail is located in the city of Ventura, they shouldn't get counted for those statistics.
Right.
Same thing here.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, City Manager, on a call today with Ventura County Public Health and city managers throughout Ventura County, the issue with regard to how health equity indexes are going to be accommodated by the census tract was a little bit confusing. They're pushing back to the state, and their request is to use zip codes because that's what our normal and the long-term tracking metric has been. So until they get clarification on that, I think they will use zip codes.
Okay, thank you. Another issue I came across last night looking for testing locations. I wanted to find out if Oxnard College was even going to be open. And I couldn't find it on the county's website. Are they having problems? Are they no longer posting that? But it was just none of that COVID testing information was available. What's going on?
So they did change VC emergency a little bit because of all the wildfires. They created another, they had to include the wildfire stuff and the COVID stuff. So it's not just COVID all the time right now. And so you got to click into that link. I haven't been in recently in terms of locating testing locations, but if you can't find one, just a reminder that you can go to our website at portwainemeemergency.org and find that information as well.
Yeah, so it was very confusing. It didn't even have a button or a link for testing. It just, I couldn't find it anywhere. Even if I did a search, I could not find it. So I'm not sure who's doing the website, but it's having.
I will have Scott reach out to the county and talk to Ashley to see if that could be more readily available.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I have one other thing. I was on the electeds call last Wednesday. You know, they have this great call from the county every Wednesday at 10:30, and I know some of my colleagues here have been on that regularly. Last week, they actually reported on the business grants that they are looking at the final or the next round of providing these $5,000 grants to businesses. And I know that we had offered the business assistance within our city where, you know, our consultant as well as, you know, Tony, they were available to walk some of our business people through the application. And so they had a second pot of money or a second set of money allocated from the county to help. And so it's just that they've allocated the first share and now the second round will be out soon. So it just, you know, gives us possibly a way to, you know, make sure that our community knew that there were monies set aside to help. And it goes to different kinds of businesses, whether they're, you know, veterans businesses or women-owned businesses. They kind of identified then different groups of businesses to be able to help with these monies. And they don't have to, the business owners don't have to pay them back when they get the money. And so it was a great way to infuse then some cash to some cash-strapped businesses. So cross our fingers and hopefully we'll have some Port Hueneme businesses that get to receive then the funds soon.
Yes, and along those same lines, I do know our Explorers went out a couple weekends ago and they went to every single business in Port Hueneme to get all their updated information to make sure we had their emails and phone numbers on file with the city. That's an effort through Steve Kinney and Reach. They paid the explorers a stipend to get that done. So we had everyone's current information so that we could send them all of these updates or any additional information to the system should any more of these types of grants comes available. And I do know the desk in the city council office, city council chambers is still available. So if Steve is ready to go again and provide assistance, should that be needed to our local businesses.
And I also heard that we ended up having these permits that our restaurants could apply for, and they were granted for them to have outdoor seating. And so we worked hand in glove with some of the businesses that had this interruption going forward, and working alongside then what we could and couldn't do. So very active part from the staff there at the city. I just want to recognize your efforts and the extended efforts of those that have actually gone through and talked to our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Rollins. You're on mute.
I'm not sure if it's the right time, but Mr. Connors, can you comment a little bit on the GoGov program and how that might eventually help our small businesses through the pandemic?
Yes, Mr. Rollins, as we've been working on, this is one of the community benefit fund packages that we've invested in with funding through that particular fund. The 311 system, it's a mobile app, and you can subscribe to it. And it will be a tool that we will deploy that will provide a variety of different resources to businesses as well as citizens in terms of issues, complaints, requests, information, surveys, and a variety of different other ways that we can generate instantaneous public information alerts, but also push directly to demographics, businesses, et cetera, to help aid, assist in the recovery from this COVID, but also to improve and ask for input on how we can better serve them as a city.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that, Mr. Connors. How do you access GoGov? How do you use it? How would one obtain access to that program?
Yes, Madam Mayor. The application is a Apple developed base app, so you can download it with an iOS system out of Apple or an alternative to Apple housing, and it's just a free app like any other app that you would get on your iPhone or Samsung phone, and you can from there you can subscribe with your information, and anytime you, for example, have a graffiti issue, you snap a picture, it knows who you are, it knows where the picture was taken for, and then you can generate that through the system, and all the responses and alerts will be returned to you when actions are taken.
Okay, thank you. I recall now that's been in place for a little while now. Councilman Gama.
City Manager Connors, when I travel to Ventura, Oxnard, Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, I noticed there appears to be a far more aggressive posture or stance taken with restaurants. I mean, they're closing off big sections of parking lots, putting up tents, moving as many tables as they can outside. I've heard from a couple business owners some complaints about there's not enough room, or some restaurants are actually closed more than they're open. So I'm wondering why in the city of Port Hueneme we haven't seen tents being erected in parking lots so that the restaurants can operate like some of these other cities are.
Our outreach included the offering of free permits to extend their services outside their normal confines of their building, sidewalks, et cetera. That is free as well, and there's no termination on that permit so long as COVID goes. We'll continue to do that. So part of that outreach by the Explorers includes advertisements for these other options as we engage those restaurants that may have an opportunity to extend their services outside and continue to operate.
I think Tony might be able to expand on that question a little bit more and can provide some input onto how many businesses have actually come forward and asked for extended permits to use these sidewalks and parking lots.
That'd be helpful. Tony, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Chief. So basically, yeah, as the city manager mentioned, the special use permit is free and it lasts as long as the business needs it to, or as long as we're going to be under these restrictions. And there is no limit. So it's really up to the business owner whether or not they want to erect a tent or just be up against the building on the sidewalk. We just ask that they not block the required handicap access. But it's really between them and their landlords how they want to set it up. Keep in mind, Ventura, for instance, has, Main Street and whatnot, and all of our restaurants and most of our businesses are in shopping centers surrounded by parking lots that are, used by multiple businesses. So it's really a little bit different in that scenario. But again, if a restaurant is proposing something like that, we'd be more than happy to work with them and get them permitted to do so. It's just really up to the particular business, whether it's a restaurant, a gym. For a while, we were working with salons as well. At least they're able to go inside now. And we probably issued close to 24 of these permits at this point for these different types of businesses.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Rollins.
Yes, Tony, I had one question. If local, because a lot of our businesses have very small sidewalks to be able to have outdoor dining, are there any city variances enforced to be able to allow them to perhaps use some of the parking lot space to be able to extend their dining? I'm assuming if there's not that many people dining, they don't need as many parking spaces anyway. So maybe, is there some kind of a balance where they can extend the dining and block off certain parts of the parking lot so that they could in fact increase it, especially if like their sidewalks are very small, and if you have ADA requirements, it would make them almost unavailable.
Right. So again, and good question. And yes, so it really is, again, up to the restaurant or the business, I should say, because like I said, it's more than just restaurants. And the property owner or the management company, how they lay that out. But yes, they are allowed to use parking spaces. And you are absolutely right in that right now we are under the same assumption that with fewer people dining out, there are more available parking spaces. So the special use permit does allow for them to use adjacent parking spaces, basically, to their restaurant. There's no variance or anything required for that.
And they would go to you if they wanted to do that, correct?
Correct. And it's usually, as long as they comply with just giving us a sketch, very simple site plan, along with the application and the business owner or the property owner's permission, we can process that in the same day that they apply.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
If I may follow up, I would just like to see a little more aggressive help on behalf of the city to make sure that all these restaurants are aware that there are possibilities, because like I said, when I travel around other cities, you see these tents everywhere. It almost seems like just about every restaurant's utilizing that option. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that maybe we could help restaurants consider bigger operations, better sales.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Gama. Chief, thank you for the efforts of the explorers going out and informing all the businesses. I really appreciate that outreach. We're all concerned about our businesses being able to come back. Unfortunately, I don't know that everyone is going to be able to survive this, but anything that we can do is appreciated. So thank you for that effort. And you too, Mr. Stewart, thank you. And Steve Kinney, if you're out there, thank you for your work. I do have one last question on the COVID matter, and that is, how long do we have to stay in the red tier in order to move on to the next level?
A total of 2 weeks, and we just hit the 2-week mark by the end of today. So beginning tomorrow, we'll be in the red tier. And if we move down to the orange tier, we'll have to maintain those numbers for a total of 2 weeks before moving to it.
Okay, so we're not out of this. Everybody has to wear their masks, social distance, wash your hands. You got to keep it going. Okay. Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I have one other thing. On the call last week, they did talk about the 2 weeks, but they also talked about how the county actually requested the state to move us to the tier because of our testing numbers. They're higher than the floor, I guess, or the ceiling, whatever you want to call it, that the state had required. And so because we're testing more people, we asked for a special dispensation. And so they took that into account as they took a look at the numbers to move us to the next tier.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Chief, for that report.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all the good work. Okay, we're going to move on to item 3, California Great Shakeout presentation. Mr. Villafana, you're on.
All right, thank you. I need to share the screen. All right. Good evening. We're going to do, this is the Great Shakeout, and once again, the city of Fort Hueneme is going to be participating. It's October 15th at 10:15. And California's most recent significant earthquake was July of 2019. And that was in Ridgecrest. It was a 6.4. There was severe damage to roads, bridges, buildings, even the hospital. There was a lot of damage in Ridgecrest. And what you have to do is protect yourself from falling objects. There's pictures of Church Christ in New Zealand in 2010 and in April of 2010 along the California-Mexico border. And to protect yourself during earthquakes, if you're inside, stay inside. If you're outside, stay outside. Drop to the floor before the earthquake drops you. Take cover under a sturdy desk or a table. Get down next to a wall and cover your head with your arms. Hold on firmly. Why drop, cover, and hold? Buildings rarely collapse in California. Most people are injured in earthquakes by falling items, so you need to get under something that's safe. Do not get into a doorway. It does not protect you from falling objects. And if there's strong earth movement, you're not going to be able to stand up. And what is the shakeout? It's a statewide drill, and it's on the 3rd Thursday of October. And millions of people will be doing this on October 15th. And why is it important? California is earthquake country. It is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we have another earthquake. In the picture, you can see the red zones that are the highly seismic active areas, and we are in that area. And we're all in this together, and what we do now is going to determine how we're going to be after an earthquake. We need to be prepared at your home, work, and school. Strap things down, put latches on cabinets, secure TVs and computers. Update a communication plan with your family and friends. learn first aid, have an earthquake or an emergency preparedness kit, and it should be 1 gallon of water per day per person, and be prepared for at least 3 days and preferably for up to 2 weeks. And the city of Port Hueneme is registered. We're registered with the state and we'll be participating. We did this last year, and we're going to be doing a level 1, which is a simple drop, cover, and hold. We'll be putting posters up at City Hall. I will be sending an email out to all the directors. We purchased megaphones last year and were distributed to directors and department heads. And we have additional megaphones available if for anyone that needs one. And what has Public Works done to prepare for an earthquake? Public Works engineers, we're certified by the Office of Emergency Services to be safety assessment assessors to inspect structures after an earthquake. And this is for registered engineers or architects or for certified special inspectors. We go through the training with the Cal OES, and it enables us to go out and inspect buildings and provide red, yellow, or green tags for a building. We have a reciprocal agreement with Ventura County Public Works for emergency services. We have on-call contractors for emergency repairs, like we used recently for the water main break at Pleasant Valley and Perkins. We have on-call contractors that I can call up, and they were very responsive. They responded within 20 minutes when I called them that night. We've also joined CalWarn in 2019. This is a mutual aid group. It's a statewide. We're broken up by sections of the state. We're a member of it, and I can call up Cayugas Water District, and I can say I need 2 crews, a water crews, a dump truck, a backhoe, and they will send it out. So it's a mutual aid group for water and wastewater organizations, public agencies. We've stockpiled supplies. We can handle traffic signal outages, and we have supplies on hand for water and sewer line breaks. And what will we do after an earthquake? After an earthquake, Public Works engineers will go out and inspect buildings and infrastructure. And this is a team effort. Public Works staff has been NIM certified, and we will work in conjunction with our police department in the event of any emergency. It's a team effort. And are there any questions?
Thank you, Don. Mr. Villafana, do any of you have any questions for Mr. Villafana? Questions? Mr. Villafana, you've been doing this now for how many years, the Great Shakeout?
Just with the city of Port Hueneme, just this is the 2nd year.
Okay. Well, thank you for keeping up the spirit and keeping this in the forefront of our minds. It's always important that we be prepared. And, you know, we are experiencing a swarm of small earthquakes along the Salton Sea area. And that is concerning because that is a potential seismic area that could trigger a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. So there's actually a scenario that USGS put out along with Caltech and other scientists outlining a scenario for a 6.8 that begins with the Salton Sea and travels north and lasts several minutes. And you can find it online, and it's quite impressive and should be a good wake-up call for people to make sure that they get prepared. You know, you mentioned something about the doorway, and one of the reasons why the doorway no longer is recommended is because with the swinging of the door caused by the shaking, people can get their hands pinched in the door. So I think that's one of the primary reasons they don't recommend that anymore. But thank you again for your work, and I hope everybody joins in and participates on the 15th, and look forward to hearing a report afterwards.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Villafana? Comments? Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to our consent calendar agenda. And we have items 4, which is to approve minutes of the City Council for the regular meeting of September 21, 2020. And item number 5, receive and file the finance cash disbursements for September 12, 2020 through September 29, 2020. May I have a motion to approve and a second? So, Councilman
Motion to
Rollins?
approve.
And
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins, and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I go back a little bit here? We started tonight with a closed session and we didn't have anything agendized to say that there was a report out and there was no report.
Oh, you were so right. We didn't do that.
So usually, yeah, I just caught that right now. So we may want to do that.
Sure, thank you. Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Spalding, do you have a report out? Can we hear that now, please?
Sure, Mayor Hernandez. There was no reportable action in the closed session tonight.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure.
All right, so we're moving on. We have no public hearings tonight. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to business items. Item number 6 under City Manager's Department is Aria Consulting finalized FY 2020-25 strategic plan adoption. And I believe we have a public comment on this. And when would be the best time to read this, Madam Clerk?
I would go ahead and let the city manager do his report, and then as soon as he's finished, when you open it up for discussion, then we can read the public comment.
All right. Okay, Mr. City Manager, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This opportunity wraps up almost a year and a half of strategic planning activity led by Aria Consulting. A contract was executed in April 2019, and the first phase 1, that included the planning and preparation, basically identifying discoverable items, financial documents, organizational documents, current activities, current strains, those types of things, and also a variety of different stakeholders, including the internal staff. That process led to the second phase, which started in May of 19, and that was the opportunity to engage those stakeholders and engage the owners and holders of those discovery documents to inspire and solicit input in building a draft strategic plan, which led to phase 3. That phase was interrupted as the transition of city manager occurred, but then was also disrupted when COVID entered the scene and restarted in earnest in March after we figured out that we could proceed and could continue with our engagements in developing this draft strategic plan. Though those efforts included a variety of workshops, a variety of engagements, and a variety of other public opportunities to participate in the creation of vision, mission, values, some guiding principles, and then the key pillars, strategic objectives, and goals for the city. When that phase was wrapping up, part of the workshop that included the council members included an additional scope that included community engagement, and that introduced us to stage 4, which began through a contract extension and a scope increase of not to exceed $40,000, which included engagements with a variety of different stakeholders, some new stakeholders that weren't included in the initial round, and then a variety of different focus groups, which identified some gaps within the strategic planning process, and those gaps were accommodated into a final version, version 7, which was presented in the last council meeting 2 weeks ago, where council members provided some input, which was accommodated. And the plan that you see before you includes every input from council members through this entire process through 21 September 2020. Remember, this is an evolutionary document. This provides an aspirational vision of what the entire community, through engagement and through the city council, expect this city to look like, feel like, and be an experience for in 5 to 10 years. And so it gives us a rough roadmap on how to do that. The next phase is putting a plan into a development phase where we start identifying very specific implied as well as specified tasks and action plans around each one of these pillars. Those are fully, they are in development, and each year, according to this plan, we will review to see where we are on timeline, to see how we are using those strategic documents to evolve and grow and lead to fulfillment of those objectives. And pending your questions, I will submit.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Connors? Councilman Rollins, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that I've been impressed by Aria Consulting in their efforts to kind of reach out to both the stakeholders and the general public to, in a kind of a very open manner, to really get some, what I feel, some really visionary goals and objectives that hopefully are going to be realistic and doable as we move forward. A little tiny point, I just noticed on the page that says 10-year vision, the little circle in the bottom is dark blue, and I can barely see what the vision is in that circle. And if there's a way to make that more of a pastel color so that the public and we can see it better, that would be great. But that's very, very minor in the scope of things. They've done an excellent job.
Thank you, Councilman Rollins. We'll have that corrected. I also should mention that the pages that are exhibits will be the facing pages that will be published on the website.
Okay. Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, so, thank you, Madam Mayor. So with Councilmember Rollins' information here, just thanking Aria Consulting. They did an excellent job in trying to synthesize information coming from all areas, from our community, from our staff, from City Council. They interviewed all of us. And so they continued to keep their ears open, as well as holding larger meetings for the community to attend. I think it was all done very professionally, but also with, starting with a clean slate almost, with the fact of where do we want to go when we grow up, when the city turns 75 and then some. And so great work on their part. So thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for following through on this, because it started a little while before you got here, but certainly it's going to be in your hands as we execute this plan. So look forward to seeing that execution. I also want to point out the timeline, because I think we maybe do ourselves a disservice here, knowing that, we had Senator Barr that actually represented not only this area, but California. And so we're missing that on the time frame. We're also missing the fact that when this area was carved out from Santa Barbara County, Thomas Bard was the supervisor that represented this area. And when we became a county of Ventura County, there were only 3 townships. There was Ventura, there was Satacoy, and there was Hueneme. And so I think if we even put that down, I believe it was like 1872 or something like that, that it's pretty strategic. And I don't want us to lose the effort that we were part and parcel of this county starting, as well as we had a famous figure that actually helped put it all together and broker it all. And he had the vision for the port, and his son then built it. It's kind of like in the Bible, David wanted to build the temple, but his son Solomon did instead. And so I think we can't walk away from the fact that we have this rich history, and I'd like somehow to incorporate that in the timeline. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, for that bit of history. I didn't realize that. That's really, I agree. I think that needs to be in there. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilman Gama.
Yes, Thomas Bard was the only Ventura County resident to be a California senator. And that's a very noble distinction for the little city doing big things. So it fits right into our strategic plan, and I like to tell people that all the time. The only U.S. senator from Ventura County was from Port Hueneme, before it was the city of Port Hueneme. On page 17, there's a reference to beaches, and I think we only have one beach. And I know this is kind of detailed, but I think it's important to not confuse people, because it's very easily confusing around here. You'd be at Silver Strand Beach, Oxnard Shores, Hollywood Beach, Hueneme Beach. So I would just hope that we could clarify that we have one beach. Other than that, I think it's a great plan. I love seeing all the input that we all provided for it.
Thank you, Councilman Gama. Anybody else?
Mayor Hernandez, if we could read that public comment as well from Mr. Fig.
Sure, I was going to get to that. I just wanted to make a comment and say that I'm just really pleased to see the culmination of all the hard work. And this was definitely a very participative process that included not only the city council, we all got to serve in different capacities over the past year, but our city manager's office, the staff from city manager's office, our city clerk, assistant city managers, our department heads, and all our stakeholders out in the community, our key stakeholders from the port, the Navy base, our school districts, from business community. We reached out far and wide to try to get as much input on this plan as possible, which really makes it an effective and strategic plan. So whoever is mayor next year is going to have the pleasure of implementing this plan and making sure that we constantly refer back to it to make sure that the projects coming before us and the requests coming before the city council are in line with that strategic plan. So Aria, thank you for all your hard work, and thank you to city council for embracing this very important project. So with that, I'll go ahead and read the public comment on this. Let's see, what did I do with it? Here it is. Okay, and this is from former council member Mayor Tom Fig, and it reads, Ms. Bucks-Kemper, perhaps you misunderstood. I wish the following comments to be read into the record if indeed business item number 6 remains on the agenda. Number 1, I would like, and I believe the public would be interested as well, in knowing the total cost for preparing the newly proposed strategic plan. Business item number 6, including staff and consultant involvement along with source of funds. Please compare these costs and funding sources to those which are attributable to the previous 2017 strategic plan. Item number 2, please itemize the cost of implementing the plan, initial outlays and long-term recurring expenses, including unfunded pensions, and where the money will come from. In my humble opinion, the fiscal disclosure and staff reports are wholly superficial and insufficient, something I was hoping could be fixed with a charter amendment, perhaps something the council might care to revisit. Number 3, finally, has the proposed strategic plan been formally vetted through the newly constituted Citizens Advisory Commission? This kind of planning document with budgetary implications would seem ideally suited for the CAC to evaluate and report its findings to the City Council before any action is taken. Again, in my humble opinion, the Council has an obligation to engage CAC in the policymaking process, as was expressly expressly envisioned under the 2017 strategic plan. Thank you, Tom Figg. And we'll pass these comments on to our city manager for follow-up. Okay. All right, moving along. We have under Finance Department items.
No, we actually have to approve and adopt. I think we need to take
we didn't do that, did we? Okay, thank you. All right.
That's okay.
So we need a motion.
So I'll move to approve and adopt the Aria Consulting Finalized Strategic Plan.
Awesome, thank you.
Second.
Second, okay. And may we have a roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes, will those changes that we talked about earlier be made?
You know, the plan is flexible. I think we have the authority now. I mean, we can make those changes. They're not substantive changes. They're real just technical changes. I don't see why we couldn't make those.
Madam Mayor, I have noted those three, and I'll do another review. Those changes will be made and will be published as requested.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we can move on to Finance Department item number 7, award contract for professional auditing services. And staff, you are on for presenting your report. And this will be Mr. McDonald. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. We put out the RFP for auditing services because our auditor abruptly canceled towards the end of July. And we were surprised to see that we got 7 respondents back. In the link on the city's webpage are all the proposals that we've received, but included in the agenda packet was the one that we used the RFP evaluation criteria to rank them, and they were the highest ranked respondent.
Okay, any questions for Mr. McDonald? Yes, Councilman Berg, and then Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Mr. McDonald, our old auditor, how many audits had he already performed for us?
I think it was the 4th year, or it could have been the 5th.
Okay, so
but it's kind of strange because the contract was originally with Patel and Associates, and they sold their firm, and that's kind of why.
Yeah, it's probably prudent though to about every 3 years or so think about changing auditors just to keep things a little more professional, maybe. But thank you.
Yeah, usually you start an RFP probably a little later than this, so we kind of were caught off guard and had to shift all our focus to getting this done. But we should still be able to try and get our statements out on time, but we could be in a little bit of a delay because of the delay in the audit field work starting.
Any more questions, Councilman Berg? Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Mr. McDonald, for having to shift into high gear here to see about recruiting some new auditors. I took a look at what you presented here in the packet for us, and I don't seem to ever recall that we had ever passed receiving the proposals that we had really ranked firms before. And so I was really happy to see this because it not only allows us to see the dollar amounts of what the audit firms want to charge us, but in relation to how strongly they rank in terms of these metrics that you're looking at. And I think it was a really wise way of going about it, because normally people would expect cities to gravitate towards the lowest bidder if they were qualified in all the areas. And so what you did was you gauged it based on the point values of what your staff and yourself took a look at that you felt were really important. And that's on page 3 of 94, if anybody's following through all of this. But it was the evaluation worksheet, and I thought this was really spectacular of you and your team to put together. I would strongly recommend that we take a look at this kind of information for maybe some of the other things that we do within the city. But I think it was a great piece of information to provide for us, as well as for measuring out then the services of our new audit firm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Rollins.
Yes. Yeah, it was a very excellent analysis as far as coming to the final decision. I just had one question, and I think you had given me some information earlier, but I thought it would be good for the general public to weigh in on your final decision. I noticed that one of the people who, or one of the companies who bid for it, was rated in the 80s, just a few points down, but was perhaps $20,000 cheaper. And I'm sure there's good reason why we chose the company that we did choose that was $20,000 more and was higher rated, was the top rated, but the one that was slightly below was not chosen. And so maybe you can talk a little bit of thought process behind that.
Yeah, it was a lot of effort put into drafting the RFP, and we had looked at some other ones out there, and even Kevin Spalding helped us with putting that together. And we really were looking for the quality of the product and trying to recognize and describe in that request for proposal how to rank those two there. So, I mean, it was a little bit of an extreme outlier in the low cost that they had. But I don't think it was a reflection of the quality of the product, but we tried to look at their technical expertise and rank that almost to the side of the cost. So that's why you get something that drastic there. I don't think we would be ill-served by taking another scenario, but I think because of the quickness of the turnaround of this and having somebody get on board relatively quick, that's why we wanted a firm and rank them with more criteria points when they have a bigger, expansive set of staff to rely on, ask questions, and complete the audit work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have questions for Mr. McDonald? Okay, I have one. Oh, go ahead, Councilman Gama.
I was just going to agree with Will Berg that I think it's a good practice with the professional services that we engage in to go out to bid every couple of years or 3 years. I think it's just a real good way to see what's new out there and execute our fiduciary responsibilities.
Yeah, I had actually started working on a draft for doing this, but because we got sidetracked by so many other projects, I thought, oh, well, let's do a continuation of the last one, so we didn't have any changes. And, it ends up life, kind of happens, and it kind of forced us into doing it. So we kind of had the RFP. I had already started the draft, so we were a little bit up on it, when we got this notice that they wanted to cancel the work before they had really began. But I agree with you there.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you. One more statement here. Mr. McDonald, there's on page 32, there's this area here called Client Training Seminar. And it sounds like this firm actually trains teams like yours with what's going on in terms of the changes in accounting and auditing standards. Is that something different? Because I don't ever remember hearing that the accounting firm is working hand in glove with us to make sure that we know, what has changed and what the teams maybe need to know. How does that fit into your plan?
It is kind of unique, and it's not normal for all firms. In probably the 6 different agencies I've been with before, we had one that was, they were Deal Evans and Company, and they ran these training sessions for all their audit clients. And it's kind of a dual purpose for them because they get us up to speed, so they have to do less chasing after, and it's kind of more of a trying to be progressive and get in front of any issues before they have to come in and try and dig them up afterwards. And that definitely got them some points in evaluating it because of the extra services really that they offer through that.
It's very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just to follow up on that, the client training seminar, it was not in the proposal. It was not in the RFP, right?
No, that's just something that they talk about is their services and what they offer and allow.
Okay. And
we weren't specifically looking for it.
Do you intend on taking advantage of it?
It can be kind of good, especially when you have new staff. So it really just depends on your staff makeup, but it's always good to have more opportunities rather than less. Well,
sure, but I think it would be a shame not to take advantage of the opportunity for training if you can break staff away, and give them the time to do that. I think it'd be quite valuable.
Yes, it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah. So just for the benefit of our listening audience, our constituents out there who are listening to this, what kind of audit is this? Is this a compliance audit, a financial audit, an operational? What kind of audit?
It's a financial audit. And basically what they're doing is coming in as your representative, unbiased and unrelated to us, and basically making a professional statement about how well the financial statements present and display that information. Because we as management produce this information to you guys as the governing board. They come in as your independent party to come in and say, yeah, we fairly believe this is accurate.
Okay. And so they're going to be looking at component units, and that entails every city department and the divisions within each city department, all their funds, and
component unit usually is more reference to like the surplus property authority, the housing authority,
okay,
as opposed to departments, but that's just kind of accounting lingo. It can be a separate department too.
Well, is that the intent of the audit, though? Is that the intent of the audit?
Yeah, the only organization that would be separate and distinct is going to be the Port Hueneme Water Agency, which is a separately governed body. And even though we manage the books, that audit is done separately.
Okay, but the housing authority would be included.
Right, because although they are the same governing board plus Johnny Brown, they're kind of a component unit of the city.
Okay.
And we combined them together to get better costs. If we went out to a separate bid for the housing authority audit, it would make that a little bit higher.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I could see that. So I noticed also that they have this cannabis compliance services. Are they going to be looking at our revenue from cannabis? Is this something that we asked for, or something that they just offer?
No, it was something that they offered in their proposal. It may mean that our current compliance auditor that we have a contract with now, HDL, could have some stiff competition. More competition usually means better price. And we're kind of, even though the dispensaries are paying for those compliance audits themselves, which are different than our financial audit here, we really want to make sure that they're dependent on delivering the service to them. And, so we will be facing some competition and probably going out for a new proposal when the first compliance audit is done.
Okay. Will they be looking at our financial management system?
Mainly that will be the main focus they have is our is our financial statements and then the general ledger system and utility billing system that feeds into those statements.
And the software that manages that or handles that, is that part of this?
They will have to utilize that software data, but they don't necessarily have to, they don't have to do anything in the system. If they have experience with it, they'll know, oh, can you run this report here, export it to this type of data? So they may be more savvy in getting some of that data out, but they're not going to be involved in directly in any upgrades or improvements to the system like we have in our CIP budget.
Okay.
Now, hopefully they will solicit some input, and their broad experience will help us when we get to that point, but this is not really specifically covered within the audit.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
And Madam Mayor, I
Any other
just have one more
Yes, go
comment.
ahead, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So, Mr. McDonald, I also noticed that this firm talked about enhancing auditing quality with artificial intelligence. Is that the first time that we're going to be putting that into play with the audit firm and looking at our books that's noted on page 53?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I noticed that and I've never seen that before. And we professionally in our department were having a conversation about it, and the fact that they're using this technology, but it's really their own business practice. We're looking for an unbiased opinion. How they get to that opinion and how they're measuring the risks to get to that opinion is really just the flash of what they're doing. So that's more of a representation of their business. And I kind of look at it as, okay, they're on a progressive edge, so they will be looking out there for more solutions, quicker solutions. So that can kind of lead you to believe that they may have a competitive edge, but I've never seen that employed in any of my experience yet.
Okay, we'll have to see what it looks like then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. McDonald? All right, great report. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and take roll call, please. Roll call vote.
So can I
You have something else?
just say that I recommend that we, let's see, what is it? Approve the audit firm that's been submitted by our staff.
Second.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask for a motion in a second. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion in a second. Now can we have the roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapps?
Yes.
Councilmember Gama?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
And Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. All right. It is 8 o'clock, 8:02, and we are now at council member reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. Let's start off with Councilmember Rollins.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate that this week I'll be representing you all in the League of California Cities at the various different Zoom meetings. I appreciate you giving me this honor, and I represent you well. As I had mentioned earlier with Reach, in the next meeting, my first inspiration will be to recognize the people who provide the home delivered meals, that the Recreation Department has taken over that responsibility probably fourfold since the pandemic had started, and we're going to be ideally, we have, as I mentioned earlier, some new Reach Wainimi Beach t-shirts that will be recognizing those people, and hopefully with the technology, you'll be able to see them through Zoom. So hopefully that comes across at the meeting. Finally, I reached out to our city manager to give me a little bit of a history and update regarding the land that's behind the Rite Aid. I know it's been something that's been there for many, many years, and there were many, many plans, and he gave me a little bit of an update, and perhaps as he sees appropriate, we can put that on the agenda to give the general public, because I've been getting some inquiries as to what they're doing with that land. So those are my three things.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Gama.
Thank you. Between last meeting and today, me and my bucket have picked up 629 cigarette butts. That's me by myself, most of which have been collected in the parking lots. And then the second area is the beach area, and then the pier is last, but there seems to be, and then with our other people that come out and pick up cigarette butts, we kind of have a contest every time. We've been doing this for a number of years, but so the sum total of all the cigarette butts that we've picked up in the last 2 weeks is close to 2,000. And it's crazy how many, I mean, because a lot of less people are smoking these days, but we're still awash in cigarette butts. So I wanted to close out our California Coastal Cleanup. Every Saturday we had an effort, and we teamed up with Surfrider. We got a little bit of support from the city of Oxnard, got a lot of support from the city of Port Hueneme, much greatly appreciated. Surfrider Corp is using some grant money to pay for the services that we got out of the city. We filled up, I think, 9 dumpsters, and we focused on the lagoon area, and the amount of styrofoam is staggering, absolutely staggering. So I would like to ask that we would first perhaps have a public discussion about considering a styrofoam ban in the city of Port Hueneme. Like I said, the amount of styrofoam is staggering, and it breaks into little pieces, and it's just terrible. So maybe we could have that discussion sometime. The second item that I would like to see on the agenda at some point has to do with agenda setting. And I don't know, I was just trying to think of a way to where we could have a action item for agenda setting, so that if myself or one of my colleagues offers up a topic for a future agenda, that we could discuss it and then have a vote to set our next agenda. So I just want to throw that out there, that maybe we could think about a way to actively involve the entire city council in agenda setting. With regards to an ordinance, it's my feeling, and please don't anyone take this personally, it's my feeling that the cigarette ban was kind of forced through without vetting all the different angles of it. Most significantly, the fact that parks are being left out of it. And what I would like to consider in the future, when we consider a new ordinance, that we first have a public discussion where we advertise, hey, we're going to consider doing a cigarette ban, and we have a public discussion and we hear all the council concerns as well as the public's concerns, and we have a real strong discussion and debate, perhaps, where all ideas are considered, and then staff come back with a first reading. And I think if we would have a 3-step process for new ordinances, that it might be far more effective in gaining support from the community and overall support from the council. Another item I'd like to see on the agenda, following the 2 things I just said, is a dog park. I think we all agree that there's tremendous support for a dog park. The question is, where, how, when, how are we going to do it? Donations are coming in to provide additional funds with the Community Benefit Fund to create a dog park, but perhaps maybe we could schedule a public discussion, advertise it, get the public to participate, and then task our staff to come back and give us a recommendation. I think it would be really healthy to hear from the five of us what our thoughts are. And perhaps we all agree, perhaps we don't, but I think it would be a really, really good way to make our meetings and our policy making far more effective and comprehensive. I've had the next item I'd like to see on the agenda is the Disaster Council. I've been at odds with a number of decisions made over the last several months. I know we're in the year 2020 and people always say 2020 vision is hindsight, and it's easy to criticize. I recognize that. However, a lot of the more controversial decisions or decisions that were made were never made with public discussion. And I'll just throw a couple of them out there for you. Chasing surfers out of the water, saying surfing's dangerous for COVID. Closing the bathrooms, closing the parking lots. So I just think that the fact that the Disaster Council was created in 1950, and I don't know that it's ever been activated for as long as it's been activated, but in looking back, I think we need to get the council more involved in decision making, at least give us a chance to partake in the discussions. As it stands now, the Disaster Council meets. I don't know when they meet. I don't get an agenda. I don't get a public notice, and I think we should look at changing that. Another thing I'm hoping to see on the agenda real soon is RSI, Pete Constant coming back out and helping move us in a very productive discussion regarding our unfunded liabilities with pension payments. I understand that staff met with or had a telephonic meeting with Pete, and it was very productive. So I'm really interested in moving towards a plan. In our very first city council meeting, we discussed Red Mule, excuse me. And we're almost 2 years now down the road, and we haven't sold the property yet. We haven't got the money yet. But my hope is that we could get all that money into the trust to shore up and help with our unfunded liability, because the quicker we get money set aside, the longer the money has to work for us in a positive manner. Budget review. I'm a little concerned with the status of our budget. Last meeting we heard about some big cannabis numbers, but the reality is that we budgeted $2.1 million for cannabis revenue, and we're anticipating maybe $200,000 over what we budgeted. But at the same time, I think we may have lost money in parking revenue. Port business slowed down there for some time. So I'm hoping that we could have a budget review soon. And then last and not least, in fact, I will say this is the most important thing. We postponed our beach festival. We have a year to go to next summer, less than a year. So if we're going to even think about having a beach festival next year, then we need to start talking about it now. And From the Earth was with us this weekend on beach cleanup, and they said they're very interested in managing organizing the music, the bands, the lineup, and they have connections with Golden Voice. Moss Jacobs from Santa Barbara came down to Wainimi actually one time and previewed our beach, and they're very interested in a music festival as well as the beach festival. So those are the things that I'd like to see. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Gama. Councilman Berg is next. Councilman Rollins, did you have something else you wanted to add?
I was just commenting on Councilman Jamin. One of the other groups, for when he talked about some of the different CIP projects that are coming in particular the dog park, I think this may be something that the Citizen Advisory Board gets involved in some level as we move forward on that. And I want to compliment Councilman Gahman. I did see him out at the parks picking up cigarette butts. And so there was, I don't know what the number was, but there were a number of cigarette butts at the park. And as we move forward to increase our, I've been assured that we're going to be putting that on the agenda as far as expanding the cigarette ban to the parks. So.
Okay. All right. It is now Councilman Burke's turn. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I agree with many of the points that Councilmember Gama made. I think we should look at maybe a music festival in addition to the beach festival, et cetera. Also, the idea of getting things on the agenda. Perhaps we need to look at a clearer policy for how we go about doing that. Back on September the 7th, I had requested some information regarding a public records request that we had, and I was assuming it would be on the agenda, but it was not. And for clarity purposes, transparency purposes, there was a request that was made back in, I believe, May, and we ended up spending 82 hours at about average $116 an hour. So that's almost $10,000 in doing this this public records request, and we still really don't know what came of it, where did it go, what was it about, and how was it, what was the purpose and the findings. However, again, to get it on the agenda, I assume we need a vote of 3 council members, but that's all I wanted to just add. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we're not going to discuss these issues. They're not on the agenda, but I too wanted to ask that we get some clarification on the procedures or policy for placing items on the agenda. I think in particular for those people like Mr. Fig, who had asked for something on the agenda, if we could better inform our public on how things get on the agenda and why they don't get on immediately, like some constituents might request. I would really like to hear a presentation or have our policy provided back to the council in public so that we all understand what the procedure and the policy is. So I am specifically asking that this be placed on the agenda for discussion. Okay. And other than that, I continue with my committee meetings. We have an RDP strategic planning meeting coming up this week. I understand Madam Mayor Pro Tem and I will be on that call. And with that, I think that's it. That's all I have.
You didn't call on me.
I didn't. Well, I'm just.
You didn't. I'm sorry.
I am so sorry. I don't know where my head's at tonight. Anyway, please go ahead, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You saved me twice tonight, and I just threw you under the bus. Three times. Oh, who's counting?
So anyways, just to let everybody know that if you haven't registered for the JPIA annual conference, it begins next Wednesday and it goes next Wednesday and Thursday. And there's some great speakers and different breakout sessions. Usually this is the conference that happens in Palm Desert, Indian Wells. And so we don't have the opportunity to go to this, other beautiful community in Southern California, but we do have an opportunity to still listen to some really bright, intelligent minds about what's going on within the risk management business, what's going on within insurance, getting updates, and they always have some great speakers too. So just, words of encouragement for all of you, and it's free, so you can register online. The annual meeting coming up for JPIA is on October 28th, so it's kind of a busy month for us all. I serve on the executive committee of the statewide conference, or not a statewide organization, and the conference certainly is one of the key highlights of the year, as well as the annual meeting. VCOG, there's a meeting coming up on November the 12th, and Just want to circle back around, just letting everyone know that, because of COVID and all the issues with international travel and all, our sister city program hasn't gotten off the ground. And so we had extended the invitation to Puerto Vallarta. We haven't heard back yet from them, but certainly when we get out of these COVID restrictions, we're hoping to re-engage in that process. So that's it for me, Madam Mayor.
Okay. You did remind me, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, that you asked for an update or a scheduling of the city port committee. And so we're still waiting to hear back on that. Right. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Hearing nothing, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We are adjourning until Monday, October 19th from the same location here on Zoom. So everybody have a good couple of weeks, and thank you for your participation. And thank you, staff out there, for making these meetings happen, for getting us broadcasted and helping us run these meetings smoothly despite my mistakes. So thank you very much. Have a good evening. Good night.